I felt called and confident that God was in it and that He was leading the way, and whatever happened, that I would be okay. I'm Janet Binns and I am the Area Dean for Burnham and Slough. So I was born in Jamaica and I came to the UK when I was 16 years old. And I guess my spiritual journey started in Jamaica, and that's really where it's all kind of embedded, really. When I was in Jamaica, we went to church regularly, from the time I was born, I guess. I was baptized into my local church, and when I was about 12, there was a minister that came from the United States to Jamaica, to the village where I lived, and he made a really huge impact on my life as a Christian. So he set up Sunday school that we would all attend, and he was very dynamic and very good with young people. And I guess he influenced my journey. Looking back and thinking about that, I feel that yes, Jamaica is a big part of who I am as a Christian. In Jamaica, church and the Christian life was a huge part of our lives. So like you have pubs here in the UK, growing up as a child, socially, it involved church. Everything that we did involved church in one way or another, apart from going to school. So yeah, it formed a very big part of my spiritual journey. The thing I think about church in Jamaica is that it's very much the same here, except that because I went to kind of a form of a Baptist church as a child, and then when I was a teenager, I moved to the gospel-style church, so kind of evangelical, charismatic church. We're probably more vocal about our faith than maybe we are in the UK. We talk about God a lot more. We associate a lot of things that we do with God. Every kind of decisions that we make, we involve God in that. Probably I would only say maybe the difference would be what I've experienced. But I wouldn't say that's generalizing. I'd say some people in the UK will speak about God in that way. I'm a sports person, and I see, like say when you watch the Olympics and one of the athletes win a medal, they give thanks to God, more so than maybe other athletes. And so, yeah, I feel that's the kind of influence that's come and carried on with me throughout my faith journey here in the UK. During the London Olympics, I was the diocesan missioner for the Olympics, and that meant that I went around the diocese talking to churches about how they could engage with the Olympics, putting on festivals and things like that. So it was about us going outside of our church doors in order to minister to those in our communities, and using the Olympics as a catalyst for that. And then thinking about the legacy that would come out of that would enable our churches to be a bit more outward looking, and also using sports as a way of connecting with our communities, because sports is a really good way of starting a conversation with people. I ran a few marathons and that has always been a really good conversation starter to talk about that. So I was a manager in the bank, and as a result of that, I became the treasurer at my church. And as you do, if you're dealing with money, in your life, then God brings you into money, into the church as well. So I was the treasurer at my local church, and that involved obviously managing the financial aspect of our church, which at the time was struggling. And so I kind of journeyed with helping the church to be able to balance their finances. And through that, I got involved in lots of other things as well. I felt God calling me to help out with Sunday school, to help out with the local kind of Bible study group, nurturing older people into the faith. And as a result of that, people started talking to me about church leadership, really. I started kind of exploring whether that's where God wanted me to be, as in moving into ordained ministry. And that took a few years because I wasn't convinced. And I think neither was the bank when I started talking about it, leaving the bank in order to move into the church. But eventually it became very clear that that was the route that God wanted me to go in. So I was ordained in 2007. Giving up my career in banking, and coming into the church, you wonder when you don't see people of colour in leadership roles what it might feel like, and also the journey. Would you get stuck in one place? Would there be opportunities for you to develop as a Christian? What would that look like? But I felt called and confident that God was in it and that he was leading the way, and whatever happened, that I would be okay, because obviously that means involving your family, uprooting I've got 2 daughters, and uprooting them in order to follow your call. And so, it was a little bit scary, but I went with it. I was obedient and followed it through. Having been ordained and being in the church, I think I've always been conscious of being a trailblazer. So always been the black woman in the room, in the same as I was in banking. So there was a time in banking where, as a manager, I was the only woman sometimes, maybe let alone the only black woman. So that was unusual for me, being in the same situation in the church. And therefore I wanted to be in a position where I could encourage others, inspire others to do the same. The challenges are there, but not usually very obvious. I was the incumbent of 2 churches in Buckinghamshire, Headstone and Bourne End, for 8 years. And there are times when you do question whether things are happening, whether it's because of your colour or not. But because I've been used to the journey of not letting it get in the way, I would always find ways of, thinking differently or just moving on from situations. The way I see Black History Month, it is something that you look back at your heritage, you look back at your forefathers and your ancestors and the journey that they've been on, and that then form who you are as a person. And therefore, it's really important to look at the history of where we've come from and be able to see the journey that people have been on to enable us to be where we are today. And then also how do we take that into the next generation? Because I feel that we have a responsibility to nurture those who are coming after us. And that's what our UKAME chapter is all about, because I'm the Dean of the UKAME chapter, and we're about helping and nurturing people into ordained ministry, into licensed lay ministry, and people of colour or people of UK minority ethnic backgrounds who may not consider ordained ministry as something for them, but to be able to nurture them so that they can become the person or the people that God wants them to be. I would say that it's not an easy journey, but then nothing is in the Christian life. It's good to talk to others, don't be afraid of doing that, and really if there are challenges, don't be afraid of facing up to them, because it's only when we face up to those challenges that we're able to deal with them and to move on and to help others to move on, because it's all part of that education, educating others to understand that, we're all made in the image of God, and God has called us into that ministry. For whatever reason that is, we bring whatever it is that God has prepared us for or equipped us for. Don't come in thinking it's a straightforward journey, but also be excited by it, because God has got so many things that He can surprise us with at times that we never thought that we were capable of. And certainly that's how I've found it myself.